Welcome to another episode about coffee. Today I'm going to be showing you a new method of brewing coffee that you may or may not have heard of called Japanese iced coffee. This is something I encountered in Japan for the first time, duh. So in this video, I'll be talking about what Japanese iced coffee is, how it differs from regular iced coffee and cold brew, and third, how to make it. The main difference with Japanese iced coffee with regular iced coffee and cold brew is that you still brew it with hot water. The basic gist of this method is that as hot coffee runs through the dripper, it will become instantaneously cooled by ice on contact, which from a scientific perspective is a great example of Newton's law of cooling. This makes it a lot different than cold brew and regular iced coffee because regular iced coffee is usually made in bulk, refrigerated, and served over ice afterwards. Cold brew is brewed cold, requires a lot of time, and doesn't really give you a lot of good flavor. I'll probably end up making a video about cold brew in the future. So compared to the other two methods of brewing coffee, Japanese iced filtered coffee is great because you preserve a lot of the single origin characteristics of the coffee you use while also maintaining that full flavor spectrum that you get with brewing hot coffee. One key thing to consider when making this coffee is that you're basically extracting the same amount of coffee as you normally would, but with less water. And that's because the other water you're going to be using is ice. The beans we're going to be using are from Indonesia, from Town in San Francisco. If you saw my previous video, same brand, same company, same bean. Check them out if you're in the city. So the only difference when making Japanese filtered coffee is you need ice. So I'm going to follow the same procedure as I would normally. Pro tip, when wetting your filter, best to use cold water so that the temperature of your carafe maintains cold. I'm not going to focus on the details of the recipe I'm using in particular, but if you are curious about which one I am using, I will link that in the description box down below. So I got my ice over here in this bowl and I'm just going to insert it into my carafe. So because the second source of water is from the ice itself, you can control how strong or how weak you want depending on how much ice you dilute it with. Also, I have to say that this fellow kettle is really coming in handy for situations like this where I really want to maintain the temperature, but also talk to you guys. To insert the coffee into the center. Once you've decided what ratio you want to use, just start pouring coffee as usual. To start, bloom your coffee with 2 to 3 times as much water as the amount of coffee grounds you are using. I really like making coffee in this way because compared to cold brew, as I said earlier, you get a lot more flavor out of it. And like cold brew too, you kind of get less acidity out of it as well. The main reason why I like Japanese filter coffee over the other two methods is because you get a lot more flavor out of it. And this really just goes to the science of flavor extraction. The main thing with Japanese iced coffee is that you're extracting the full range of flavors because you have hot water. And from a chemical standpoint, this makes sense because hot water in general just has a lot more energy to really solubilize flavor compounds and other chemicals that you find in ground coffee, which is why it's become my preferred way of making iced coffee. So the extraction's done, got to our estimated brew time. Again, recipe is going to be in the description box below. And if you are curious about this particular dripper I am using, I will be making a video about it in the future. At this point, the temperature is cold to the touch. There are still some ice cubes remaining, but by the end of the total extraction, all the ice should be melted. If not, you can swirl it around to get rid of any remaining ice. A lot of the vibrancy is more pronounced compared to if I were to brew this via cold brew. It's a lot less acidic, more smooth, and because of the hot weather, at least here in San Francisco and back home in the Philippines, it's a very refreshing treat. And what's even better is that if you accidentally may have brewed it too strong to your likings, add more ice to dilute it. Thanks for watching. Give this method of brewing coffee a try at home. Let me know what you think about it. And if you have any particular questions or difficulties, feel free to DM me on Instagram or send me a message in the comments. And hopefully I can help out with science.